Hey there YouTubes, this is Grimweird coming back at you with more Enigmatica 2 Expert Mod Pack playthrough action for Minecraft 1.12.2, and this is E2E version 1.75. So I'm not ready to shoot the whole next episode, but I thought I'd at least shoot this initial part where I'm working on some singularities. So when last time I left you, I had realized that I was going to consume 2 creative fluid tanks, one to make the creative gas tank and then one to make the creative vending upgrades for the drawers for creative items. And so I sort of wanted to make a couple more, one to keep and then one to consume for gas and then one to consume for the drawers. So I went ahead and did that. So we went ahead and made another couple of tanks, and I wanted to show you what I'm doing with them. So we're still sort of working our way towards, so we've done a couple of, well, we've now done 3 of the creative tanks, creative fluid tanks, so that's good. Having infinite fluids is wonderful. We're going to burn one of them up, as we can see here in the creative gas tank. And then we're going to burn another one up when we make the creative vending upgrades. So we'll be burning one up there. We'll also be burning up our creative gas tank. I'm not 100% sure if I feel a strong need for infinite gas through the end of the game. Infinite fluids, yes. Gas, I'm not too worried about. So we might make yet a 4th creative fluid tank so that we can keep a creative gas tank, but I doubt we'll need to. I think between infinite fluids and infinite items, we should be able to handle all of our needs for the rest of this playthrough. So let's see what I'm doing with these. So the next thing we want to do, we're still sort of slowly working our way towards infinite items through these creative vending upgrades. You can slap them in a drawer, and then the drawer will output infinite amounts of them. And you can use one to create 2, so basically you can make a drawer system that has infinite amounts of everything. To get that, we're going to need 2 infinity ingots. And so that's sort of our sticking point now for moving forward. So if we look at the infinity ingots, they are going to require 11 infinity catalysts and 1 ultimate singularity. And so these have tons of singularities in them. So we're going to need, and these have tons of singularities in them. So for most of the singularities, we're going to need 13 per ingot, and we need, pardon me, I have to cough, and we're going to need 2 ingots, so 13 and 13, 26, and then we're going to want a leftover ingot so that once we have the creative vending upgrade, hopefully we can make an infinite amount of infinity ingots and finish the playthrough. So 27. So the singularities require 10,000 of an item. So for instance, the iron singularity requires 10,000 iron ingots to make. Times 27, that's 270,000 iron ingots. This sounds horrible, but that's why we concentrated on the fluid tank first. So let me show you what I've got going on here. First, let's take a look at this middle thing, because that's sort of the key that's going on. I'm not going to claim this is the most efficient way to do this, or the most cost-effective way to do this, but when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of items, doing things the most efficient way on a, whether I have 4 ingot formers or 6, or whether I have, 1 quantum compressor or 2, or whether I have, this amount of fluid conduits or another amount, I don't care at this point. Basically, I just want something relatively easy to set up that gets me singularities fast. So as we can see here, we've got a creative fluid tank here with an infinite amount of molten nickel. You can tell by the little green arrows that we've got that fluid coming straight out into our nuclear craft ingot formers, and we are pumping out ingots. So I've got this currently tuned at about 12 speed upgrade and 12 energy upgrade, which seems to be doing good with my current setup. However you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure that you balance things out, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. And then you can tell from the little green arrows here that we are then pulling the completed ingots out. So now we're talking item conduits instead of fluid conduits. So the fluid goes in, the ingots come out, and the ingots come into the quantum compressor. And in the quantum compressor, you can see we've got tons of ingots coming in and singularities being formed. So the way this thing runs is that it doesn't do anything until it has 10,000, the first 10,000, and then it starts consuming energy and slowly raising this bar. And you can see this bar is not particularly fast, and there's no place to put upgrades in it. So it's sort of a slow beast. As far as I know, there's no way to make them faster. You would just make more of them and split the load. You can, of course, do some tick acceleration. You can get about 3 or 4 of them on there before it starts using so much forge energy that it maxes out a 10 million per tick flux point. So I don't necessarily want to go much higher than that anyway. You can see now it's dropped below 10,000, so it's no longer using power, and it's going to wait until it gets to 10,000. If you've got so many ingots coming in here that you're doing them faster than you can make singularities, which is what originally happened when I set this up, you can sort of overwhelm it. So when I looked at my first one after being AFK for a while, it had 70,000 or so ingots saved up, and it was still slowly pumping out singularities. So that was when I originally had 16 and 16 for upgrades in my factory here, which I'll talk about more in a moment. So yeah, basically that's what we're doing. We got a crystalline catalyst in here, which sort of sets the recipe. It tells the quantum compressor that we are doing singularities. And we build up to 10,000. And then once we are up at 10,000, it slowly starts consuming power to make the singularity. And if we take a look at my ME system, you can see I have a number of singularities for a number of things. So I've got 37 aluminum, 37 ardite, 29 bronze, 28 cobalt, 62 copper. So I don't have this automatically outputting. So 62 copper, well, I sort of went to AFK for a while and came back and went, oh, that's a crap load of copper singularities. But I'm not really losing any here. I have more than enough power to handle this. This is unlimited free molten nickel. And I have unlimited, well, I have enough power that basically I'm not dipping into my induction matrix to run this. So this is all basically free. So the fact that I make more than 27 is no big deal. But yeah, that's about it. And then when you finish with this, you can hit eject and pull out the leftover nickels. So somewhere between 1 and 9,999 nickel ingots will be left over when I stop this. I usually, in this setup, I'm trying to stop it at around 9,000, so that when it coasts to a stop, it'll be only a few thousand nickel that I have to eject, a stack at a time. So that is, you can see I've got one cell here. So I'm using conduits on 4 different faces for speed. I want to make sure that I'm pulling liquid out of here fast enough that I don't need to worry about it. And I don't even have any extract speeds in here, or extract speed upgrades to pulling things out. So the fact that I'm using different faces here saves me from any kind of clogging up of my conduits. But to do that, you need more faces. So this is just one cell. So let's take a look at another cell. So this is essentially the exact same thing, except in place of the creative tank, we have a Liquiface, a phantom Liquiface, that is linked to the creative tank. It calls it a basic fluid tank, but you get the idea. So this basically acts exactly as a mirror, as a duplicate of the creative fluid tank. and we're pulling things out. Same way, turning them into ingots, sending them back in. And this, you guessed it, is a Phantomface that is an exact duplicate of the quantum compressor. So the way we can do this is that basically the quantum compressor will take things pretty much as fast as you can give it to it. And the creative fluid is infinite and will take things pretty much as fast as you can pull it out of it. And so using the Phantomfaces as duplicates for these two machines allows us to dial this up to 11 without having to worry about running out of sides or our conduits getting clogged up and not being able to pull things out fast enough. Like if I had one fluid conduit trying to feed all 15 or all 20 of my ingot formers, I wouldn't be able to pull fluid out probably fast enough. Maybe I would, probably I wouldn't. So anyway, that's what I'm doing here. And it's working fine, as you can see. So we've got tons of singularities of all of the molten metals. And it's going at a decent pace. If we take a look at here, if we watch this go up, remember we get a singularity every 10,000 ingots, and we're going up about 100 a second or so. So, 6,000 a minute, so it only takes 3 or 4 minutes maybe to get a singularity. There are a bunch of different singularities we have to make, but it's not too bad, especially since I'm mostly letting this run while I am doing other things, like watching Season 2 of Altered Carbon. But I have 2 more of these guys, so what am I doing with the other 2? This one I've still sort of got hooked up here just as sort of a general all-purpose thing. Whenever I decide to myself, oh hey, I need some more blazing pyrotheum, or whenever I need anything else, I've got this one here as sort of a working tank. Oops, I need some more latex. Boom, get some more latex. But then the other one, this contraption up here, this setup up here is working great for molten metals. So for all of the singularities that we need, like iron and aluminum and copper and tin, that have molten versions of them. But there are some things that don't have molten versions of them, or that have molten versions of them but won't go through the ingot former. So let's take a look at one of those and you can see what I'm doing with it. So one of those is, let's see if we pull this up, Emerald Singularity. So we need 270,000 emeralds. I don't have 270,000 emeralds yet. So if we take a look at that, there's lots of things we could do about that. We could pull emerald ore up through a void ore miner tier 6 at max speed with a lime laser. Would get us a ton of emeralds pretty quick. There's a lot of things we could do about that. But I sort of want to take advantage of the creative fluid tank. So if we take a look at emerald, there is a molten emerald thanks to a nuclear craft. But you'll see here there is no ingot former. You cannot make emerald ingots in the ingot former, so we can't use what we've got up there on the roof using all of our Phantomfaces and Liquifaces and ingot formers. So what can you do with it? Well, you can basically not do a ton of stuff with it. In fact, there's nothing obvious here. However, if you come to here, you can see that you can cast it into a gem cast. Whatever. We don't want to do a gem at a time. If we take a look at gem blocks, you can also see that you can throw the emerald into blocks in a basin cast or in a basin. So now we're making 9 at a pop, so that sounds sort of good. However, as we all know, the normal speed of a Tinker's smelter is not good, and it's not good at all for gems. So if we look here, it is slow pouring out, as in we're about 1/10 of the way done pouring so far. Yeah, slow. And then we gotta let it solidify. You know, we can jack this up. And now it's filling faster, but we're like still sort of painful, and that's at 5 clicks. And now if we see the progress, there at the bottom, the last gray line there, 6%, 7%, 8%. So that is slow. And even if we take this up to 6, it is annoying because it gets to 100%, but it doesn't want to come out anyway. So that's not going to work for us. That's not going to give us 270,000 emeralds at any speed. But what I've done is I've hooked up the creative fluid tank. We are piping with our normal just ender conduits for fluid. We're piping that through a drain into our smeltery. And we are getting it out this way. So we're piping it out with ender conduit fluids, and we're piping it into a smart output. So this gets us past the whole faucet slowness of pour, because you can see that we are just pumping it just fine into the smart output, and then the smart output does not have any kind of cooling time. It's an instant cool. So what I've done here is I've put a basin upgrade in here that allows us to go from just casting table to pardon me, I have to cough. To basin mode. Now we could go ahead and put a gem cast on the casting table, but these basin upgrades are too horrible to make late in the game. If we take a look at that, it's 4 casting basins and 4 obsidian, and then you got to go through this whole progression to make all of the normal upgrades. But it's not too horrible. And these slot upgrades, they basically just add more output. So in other words, instead of outputting 1 block of emerald at a time, if we do this, we can do 1, and then this adds 4, and adds another 4, and adds another 4, and adds another 4. And this just gives us some buffer in the smart output for making things. And then we are pumping those straight out of that into a drawer controller. I had a spare one of these lying around, and that drawer controller is then dispersing it out into a locked emerald compacting drawer where the blocks can now be turned into emeralds easily enough. So when we get ready to make emerald singularities, and we've almost got enough to make our first emerald singularity, we can pipe emeralds straight out of here and straight into a quantum compressor. And if we take a look here, I went ahead and put a bunch of storage upgrades, more than I need actually, but I put a bunch of storage upgrades in there just so that we'd have plenty of room. So basically I'm just going to let this go. We sit here and watch this a while. You can see it's going up. It's going up pretty fast. The blocks are going up a couple blocks per tick, maybe, or a couple blocks every 3 or 4 ticks. So that's plenty. So if we let this run for an hour or 2, we should have plenty of emeralds. So I'm just going to watch this until this gets up to about 270k, and then I'll set up a quantum compressor to pump these emeralds out and make 27 singularities. So that is one way to get around things that do not have a recipe for the ingot formers. And if we look back up here at how this is going, we are good to go. So I've got enough in there to make the 27th already. So I'm just going to speed this up a bit. Probably when this gets to 9,000, I will turn it off. And that'll give us one extra. But actually, let's go ahead and turn it off now. What the hell? It don't matter. So to turn this off, turn this whole situation off, I grab my gauge dropper and I shift left click and empty my creative fluid tank. And now you can see that all of these will stop getting molten nickel and they will glide to a stop. We've got our 27th, so that's good. That's all we're going to make. That's all we need, hopefully. So boom, we got another metal down. Good, good, good. So now I'm just going to let this sort of come to a stop. And the only hard part about this thing, the only thing I don't like about this setup, which I might try to figure out a way to do things better the next time I have to make a bunch of singularities, is that these dumb ingot formers always have 16 millibuckets left over. So now I got to come through here and clear that 16 millibuckets out of each of my ingot formers. So this is a bit of an annoyance, but it's not too horrible. When I was faced with the idea of making huge amounts of singularities, I thought it was going to be much worse than it was. So if this is the worst part of making singularities, that's still not too horrible. Again, I'm not making chests here, I'm making singularities. It's supposed to be a little bit difficult, right? Alright, did I get them all? As you can see now, they have no particle effects on the ingot formers. So once we start this up again with the next one, and let's show you how we do that. What do we need next? Let's see, we did nickel, Constantin. Not Istanbul, but Constantin. I can't spell. Alright, so I'm going to grab one of these real quick, throw it in my pyrotheum fueled melter, give it a couple taps because I'm impatient, get my gauge dropper out because one ingot only makes 144 millibuckets, not a full bucket, but I can grab that with my gauge dropper. And I can run up here, and I can click that onto here. Now we've got a creative fluid tank full of molten Constantin. And if we take a look here, we can see the smoke particle effects coming off of all of our ingot formers. So I know those are working now, and that I did successfully remember to clear out. Did I remember to clear out these bad boys? This is why I check. Oh, yeah, they're stopped because I have not cleared out the compressor yet. So here we've still got 6,600 nickel left over. Again, I usually aim to stop this a little sooner, which results in a little bit cleaner of a break, but it's really not that hard to eject 6,600. You just hit eject. And now the nickel ones are coming out here, and you just spam click this. The graphics take a while to catch up to what's actually going on. When the blue bar starts moving, I know that I'm technically full. Double click, shift double click to dump those all into my ME system. Spam click here when the blue bar stops going down. Go over here. Double click. Sometimes the shift double click doesn't work. There it goes. Spam click. And here we go. This should take care of it. Alrighty. And the Constantin went in. And now the new Constantin will start flowing. And boom, away we go. We're already up to almost a couple thousand, so we're well on our way to our first Constantine Singularity. So there you go. That's how I'm making Singularities. This is going a bit slower down here, but we are up to 11,000, so we've got our first Singularity of worth of emerald down here, so that's good. And this is very low maintenance. I can just let that run. The last class of thing that we got to worry about here is ones that don't have a liquid. And that I haven't quite figured out yet, so that's what I'm going to be working on now. Let's see. Blocks of coal. We can, I believe, use... Okay, so blocks of coal can go... liquefacted coal can go into a basin. So we're going to use the same thing we're using for emerald, we're going to use for blocks of coal. So that'll be a piece of cake. It'll take a bit, but not a problem. What else do we got? Lapis. I think lapis is going to be our first problem here. So blocks of lapis, we can't make them in a basin. There is no liquid lapis as far as I am aware. Oh, there is molten lapis. Nice. We can't put molten lapis through. We can't put it through. Can't put it through the ingot former, and we can't put it through the smeltery. What can we do with it? Can we transpose it into something useful? These are all just containers. Yeah, I'm not really seeing any way to get our infinite molten lapis back into solid form. Now that may just be missing from JEI, so I will probably just double check that real quick by see if I can throw a little molten lapis in the smeltery the next time that it's open, like in between emerald and coal. I might just try it, because who knows, maybe you can do it, it's just not listed here. But I'm not seeing any way to turn liquids into solids for lapis, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. We do have, I sort of saw this coming, so we do have some lapis here. We've got that cooking, so we've got 8 of these makes 12 of those. So we have we have quite a bit. That's going to be I don't know, what, 15, 20,000 lapis there. So that's enough for one singularity at least. And if we look at lapis in here, we got 47k blocks here. So that's another 4. So we got to come up with another lots of lapis in some way. So I got to think about that a bit. Our essence isn't coming in fast enough. The ore we can get from, at weight 14 we can get it pretty fast with blue lasers, so that's doable. Although we need lots of it, so we could set up the tier 5 thing and let it run again with a blue laser lens at 7%. It'll give us a lot of ore reasonably fast, so that's another option. And the ore does give you lots. If we take a look at enrichment chamber, 1 ore will give us 12. So I'm going to think on this a bit more. I'm going to dig around in the JEI. I'm going to run a couple of tests just to make sure we aren't missing any recipes that would work for us. I'm going to play around a bit and see what I can do. We got Starlight Infusion too, and that will turn... well, that doesn't really help us much. Sea Lanterns into Lapis blocks. We can make Sea Lanterns. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking we put a blue laser in a tier 5 void ore miner, get a bunch of ore, and then do it that way. We might have to avoid a lot of the stuff because I've got way more ore than I need for most things. But this is one of our problem childs, so I'm going to be doing some playing around with this, trying to figure it out. I've never played with an orchid or an orchid ignum. That could be interesting. But it's not going to be as fast as a void ore miner, tier 5, with maximum speed upgrades. So anyway, this is the kind of stuff we're facing. If we take a look here, Lapis is going to be a problem. Glowstone, I don't think will be. We can do the same thing. Take a look here. We can cast it out into the thing, so that'll be the same thing we're doing as Emerald here. So that won't be too bad. Up to 13,000 emeralds there. The only thing bad about that is you use the actual full glowstone. Let's see. Redstone. We can do that through the smeltery. Flux crystals. 10,000 flux crystals is going to sort of suck. This we're going to have to do through the fluid transposer, so we're going to need 270,000 diamonds to put through there. Diamonds are going to be one that we can make through the smeltery. We're just going to have to make them twice. Yeah, so we're going to have to run diamonds through the smeltery twice, the way we're doing emeralds. Once for diamond singularities and once for those crystals. Not the end of the world, but it will take some time for the flux crystals. And then we'll have to process those through... we'll have infinite destabilized redstone, but we'll have to put those through a fluid transposer. Again, not the end of the world. We can set up a dedicated one for that and feed it with infinite destabilized redstone fluid. Quartz. Quartz is going to be another hard one, like Lapis, in that there's not really a lot of things you can do here, I don't think. There's no liquid form of quartz, so we can't put it through the smeltery. We can't put it through the ingot formers. So that's going to be another one that's going to be sort of tough. How much quartz do we have? Nether quartz, 518,000. So we do have the 270,000 necessary. Well, actually it takes blocks, doesn't it? Let's double check that. It takes blocks, and a block is 4. So we have 100 and some thousand. So we are going to need some more nether quartz. But nether quartz isn't too hard to get a hold of. I'm less worried about that than I am lapis, to be honest. And then, whoa, lastly, I think there was a third one that I was a little worried about here. Syrtis Quartz. Yeah, Syrtis Quartz is another one that has no liquid form, so we're going to have to find some sort of treatment for that. And then I believe for the ultimate singularity, we've got a few more that we might have to worry about, like black quartz. So if we go here, ultimate singularity, Fluix crystals, quartz crystals, Syrtis Quartz crystals, black quartz. Yeah, so basically the Lapis, the Fluix, the quartz crystals, the Syrtis Quartz crystals, those are the ones that are going to be a pain. So I'm going to have to find a way to get us a bunch more of those. And that's sort of next on my agenda. Now that I've got this up and running and it's cooking along, and I've got this up and running and it's cooking along, I need to start looking into that a bit more. I did go ahead and get us some seeds going here for Fluix and black quartz and Lapis, and I got those going a couple weeks ago, so we actually have quite a few of them, but not enough. Not enough. Now I could make more seeds of each of these and set up a lot more cloches. I could set up a whole cloche farm with a bunch of these seeds and try and get it that way. But I think in most cases it's going to be easier to go through some sort of auto-sieving or some sort of void mining to get a lot of that stuff. Anyway, this is the big Singularity update. So you can see I'm working hard, getting stuff done here. Well on my way to making some infinity ingots so that we can try and close this place out. I just want to give you an update. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to keep plugging away at Singularities tonight and possibly tomorrow night. And then I'll come back for the second half of this episode, depending on our runtime, and we'll talk about how far I got and if any solutions came up, and etc. One thing I might do is, I don't really need a huge smeltery to do this, and I am looking at needing to do this for coal, redstone, glowstone, and diamond twice, etc. So I may just make another couple little smelters down in my basement, or at least one more, and use this creative fluid tank to do some parallel processing so that I can pump out more of these at once. So that's something I might do. But anyway, I'm not sure what our runtime is, but I will be back in a moment, which for me will be probably a night or two while I continue to work on this. And just a quick follow-up to the first part of this episode. I did a bit of experimentation with the Tinker.io smart outputs. As you can see, I've added a diamond one here, and I've got up to 46,000 diamonds emeralds and 29,000 diamonds. If we run around the corner here, what I've done is the experimentation I did was, one, I wasn't sure if these could work. It didn't occur to me that these might work without any interaction with the smeltery, but I had tried the interfluid conduits instead of a faucet, and that definitely speeded things up because faucets are slow. And as I was getting ready to try new experiments, I thought, well, wait a minute. If I can just take an Ender.io fluid conduit and go into a smart output, I don't need it to go anywhere near a smeltery. And then I thought, well, hey, these don't take any power, and they can form ingots and form blocks just as well as ingot formers for most things. So why am I doing ingot formers again? So I went ahead and made these. They are super cheap in that if we take a look, if we go at Tinker.io, these guys are just seared stone, which is nothing. You might have to chisel it into this state if you have it in a bricks or something. and ice, which I didn't have ice, but I had a ton of snow, which I could turn into ice. So that was no big deal. So these are super cheap to make. The upgrades are a little bit more expensive. So I've been playing around a bit with how much upgrades you need. Just to give them a bit of a buffer, I like having at least a couple of slot upgrade 4s in them, so that this slot will hold up to 9 as opposed to it starts with just one. One of these adds 4 to get to 5, and then another one adds 9, or a 4 to add to 9. And it's just good to have a little bit of buffer there for your conduits. I'm currently pulling these out with underneath. Let's look down there real quick. Which direction am I going? So you can see down here that beneath these Tinker.io smart outputs, I have just normal item conduits sucking out of those, and then all coming over here and inputting into the drawer controller where I'm storing things. Now obviously I could also go straight into a quantum compressor, and I am thinking about that, but those are sort of expensive to build. Or not expensive, but I don't know, I don't feel like making another one. I'm far enough along in the process that I just don't really feel the need right at the moment. But that might change. I might change my mind there and make a couple more quantum compressors and take the emeralds and diamonds straight into those as opposed to going to a drawer first. It's just sort of easier to keep an eye on things in the drawer. But yeah, so I do have 7 extract speed upgrades on the bottom of my to pull blocks out, and I have 7 on the fluid conduits. I've got 7 extract speeds. If we come back up here, I do have 7 extract speeds on the fluid conduits coming out of the creative tanks. But yeah, so this isn't too bad at all. These don't require power, so this would be pretty easy to make liquifaces and just pump even more of these things out, get even more going on in parallel. I'm not in that big of a hurry because I'm letting a lot of this chug AFK while I binge watch some Altered Carbon on Netflix. So I've got other things to do, but this is going pretty nice. So we're pumping out of my 2 spare creative tanks straight into these. You can see that they're busting out blocks of emerald pretty darn quick. These things are sputtering so hard, it's really sort of hard to tell how fast they're going. Probably the hardest part of this is that you do need to make basin upgrades for them. So you are going to need to make a bunch of grout and a bunch of seared stone, or you can just throw stone in your smeltery and cast out some seared stone blocks and make a bunch of I guess you need the seared bricks, so you will want to go the grout route. But you know, grout is not expensive at all. Gonna have to have some obsidian. Gonna have to have some manulin nuggets and some night slime nuggets. But if you're working on Singularities, you've probably been working on ultimate ingots, and you probably have night slime nuggets and everything on hand. Gotta have some chests, so it's a little bit of investment in especially the basin upgrades, these upgrades, but still the difference is that my ingot formers up here that are working on metal, these guys are chewing up, I think, about 1.5, over 1 million RF per tick for their action, whereas the Tinker.io smart outputs are not. And these are moving reasonably quick. However, I think the Tinker.io set to blocks would actually pump things out even faster. Of course, if you were going straight into your quantum compressor, you'd want to pump them out as ingots, so you would leave it as you would leave the Tinker.io smart outputs as you'd take this out and leave it on here, and then right in this slot you would put an ingot cast. So it'd be interesting. I think if I ever do this again, one of the things I might try is throwing an ingot cast in here and even doing my metals through these smart outputs as opposed to ingot formers, because then I can have one big massive setup for both things like gems, which diamonds and emeralds and coal and redstone and glowstone are all going to go through here because they don't go through ingot formers, but then these should also be able to handle all the metals. And so then I would just build one big thing of this as opposed to having the ingot formers too. And also save myself, millions of RF per tick. So this experiment is going well. I haven't played around with experimenting if I can find some way to turn molten lapis into solid yet. So that's another thing I'll do when I take another break and play around a bit more. But this experiment is going well, and we are up to 57,000 emeralds, so that is good. And you can see this has some lag and some pickup, but we're getting, easily 100 emeralds every second or two here. Yeah, see that it sort of like stutters there, but roughly 100 emeralds a second, that ain't too bad. I go AFK for a while. We're already up to like 5 singularities worth of emeralds, so if we let this run for a few hours, we should have enough for the 27 singularities or so that we need. And the diamonds are coming along nicely as well. So yeah, that is going good. Another thing you could do is go straight from the smelter. But yeah, I decided to sort of just cut out the middleman and go straight from the creative tank into these smart outputs. And I'm happy with how that's working. It seems to be chugging along quite nice. The only thing I might need to put a few more extract speeds in the item output. I might be able to get even better results out of here with a little bit more tinkering about with the extract speeds. But not too bad at all. So, yeah, I think we're going to have some more runtime left on this episode, so I'm going to pause again. I'm going to let this run about. I'm going to try and do maybe some experimentation with Lapis and Fluix crystal and things like that to see if I can find a good way to pump out lots of those. And then we'll end up the episode when I come back and have some more answers. All right, and it's the next evening, and I have been sort of mostly AFK building up of resources and singularities. So you can see here we've added a few things. We've now got 270 some odd thousand blocks of coal, so that's cool. We're up to 35,000 blocks of emerald, so that's coming along. We've got almost 100,000 or a little over 100,000 blocks of diamonds. So we're just getting lots and lots of stuff here. I think we've got about enough diamonds and coal and redstone to cover all of our in-game needs. So currently we have emerald and glowstone being made here. So you can see we're pumping out the glowstone from our creative tank here and pumping out the emerald from our creative tank here. So that's all going well. If we take a look at where we are here in my staging area, let's see, ultimate ingots, I've got a bunch of those made up, and here's my template for making more. I just grab things out of my AE system and my ME system and just add them to the pile. Infinity catalysts, if we take a look at infinity catalysts, this is the recipe. I've got more stuff I can add in here, but I'm just sort of building up things. I've mostly been focused on the singularities, So we've got almost 4 rows of singularities we need, and we're getting there. We're missing a few of the ones like the coal and the diamond and the emerald and the Syrtis and the fluix and the quartz. You know, some of the more crystalline ones, but we've got pretty much all of the sort of metal ones that we were putting through the ingot former. I think we're going to need probably about 12 of these. So I'm basing that on we need 1 infinity ingot to sort of get going. I originally thought we were going to need 2, but that was based on the assumption that you couldn't melt down and get molten infinity, but you can. So once we have 1 infinity ingot, we will have all the infinity ingots we need thanks to a creative fluid tank. And so for an infinity ingot, we're going to need 11 infinity catalysts, and then I'll make a 12th one just so that we have one to make extras. And we're going to need 2 ultimate singularities, and I'm going to make a 3rd one just so we have one to duplicate once we have creative vending upgrades. So I kept losing track of what I wanted to do, so I put the numbers up here on my side: 12 infinity catalysts and 3 ultimate singularities. For the ultimate singularities, as you can see, we've got more than half of them done. Again, we're missing things like coal, diamond, redstone, glowstone, quartz, fluix, a few other things like that that we're going to have to do here shortly. So those are coming along, both the infinity catalysts and the ultimate singularity. Those are coming along from a singularity standpoint. So that's all going good. I've got all the neutronium ingots I can need. Crystal matrix ingots are easy peasy. So we're basically just waiting on this stuff. So the infinity catalysts also have a bunch of other weird stuff in here. So most of this, the titanium, the blocks we can do. Terrestrial artifact is pretty easy. Dragon eggs we got. Ludicrite we can do. Awakened draconium. Music discs I may need to. I think there's a way to. I'll either have to buy some from an autophile, one of the Elvis guys, or I think there might be a way to. I think you might be able to make them with UU matter. Or here you can make blank records, so maybe those will work. Anyway, we'll have to take a look at getting records, because we're going to want 12 records. And I don't think I've been keeping a lot of them. Let's take a look. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got exactly 12. So if they all work, then we should be good to go. And if not, I'll figure something out. But what else do we need? The crystal matrix ingots and neutronium ingots are easy. Indist pearl. This is all pretty easy. We can bust out all of this stuff. We've got tons of wither dust from our wither farm. We've got tons of ender pearls and various other ender things. We'll need to make up some empowered diamantine. I should just, while I'm thinking about that, get some of that going through. Get about 4 of those started, just so that I have some around, because I'm going to need them. And then also we've got, so the sort of interesting ones were the Cosmic Meatballs and Ultimate Stew. So I have been working on those and have them ready to go. So here's the Cosmic Meatballs. It's basically just a whole bunch of meat with a couple of neutronium ingots. One recipe makes 9, since I want 12. We're going to go ahead and make 2 recipes. None of this was too hard, except for the fact that it turns out my laser gun with Inferno on it from the Dragon Steel is actually cooks meat. So I didn't have some of the raw versions of some of these. But I've concentrated so much on food to get my nutrition and health all the way maxed that I had most of this. I did have to run out and find a few things to kill without my laser gun so that it wasn't pre-cooked. I had to go get some raw horse. I had to go get some a few prime things, but it wasn't too hard. The prime bacon and prime steak you can just make with a carving knife. I had to go shoot some peacocks because you need raw peacock and raw prime peacock. That wasn't too hard. Raw prime rabbit. That was one that did cause me a bit of an initial discomfort. So if we come out here, we can see that I do have now rabbits. And the reason I have rabbits, oh, and they bred a kit. The reason I have rabbits is because I went out and was shooting rabbits, trying to get prime rabbit, and all I was getting was these two are just having all sorts of fun. Just wondering why they're all hungry and thirsty. Supposedly they can eat grass and they can drink out of this water block, but whatever. Anyway, so I was having trouble getting them. I shot a bunch of rabbits. I shot like dozens of rabbits out in the wild while flying around, or I should say I whacked them with a sword so as not to cook them, and was only getting rabbit meat. So I ended up taking out one of the pendulums I have, collecting 5 rabbits, bringing them back here, thinking that maybe I needed to breed them, maybe they needed to be happy to drop prime meat, as opposed to basically all of the other animals that I was getting, which I didn't have any problems getting prime meat for them. And then finally, in one last gasp, I mostly had been shooting Havana bucks, or Havana does, the Havana rabbits, but I remembered that there was a bunch of rabbits out in the desert, jackrabbits. So I thought maybe I'd go shoot some of them, and I shot a few of them, still got nothing but rabbit meat, and then finally I fed one a carrot and then killed it, and boom, got 2 prime rabbit meat. So I don't know if that was coincidence or what, but it's at least something to try. If you're trying to get prime rabbit meat and you're not getting it, try feeding them a carrot and then killing them. Rude, but that's what worked for me. But then the last ones were the raw turkey, raw venison, and raw duck. For those, I basically just went ahead and made some of the Pam's Harvest Craft ground traps. You can fill those up with either veggie bait or grain bait. You can see here's the raw venison, some raw duck, more raw venison, more raw duck. I think I had to use grain to get the last one, the turkey. So grain bait instead of veggie bait. But that was all pretty easy and that went pretty fast. I used the tick accelerator, time on a bottle, to just pump that out really quick. So we have the ability to make cosmic meatballs. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that to go. And let's do that and that. Bang. And then that. Alright, we have Cosmic Meatballs. And so that goes for Infinity Catalyst. We'll put that in slot 3 here. We're going to want 12 of them. Boom. I did have one ultimate stew that I got from a quest reward loot chest, but one doesn't really do much for me. But let's talk about Ultimate Stew. Once again, it takes 1 neutronium ingot and a bunch of stuff. Now, I pushed really hard to get my nutrition all the way up because I wanted to see what the max was on that. So I had most of this on me already. I did have a few where I had the seeds of some of this stuff down here that says not eaten, like okra and peas and water chestnut, spinach, cabbage. I did have some of these that I had seeds. I had purchased seeds from the market. What is the name of that thing again? So this thing, the market from farming for blockheads, that summons up a villager who will trade emeralds for seeds. So some of these, the ones I didn't have, I already had the seeds for because I thought I might need them for doing stuff. So all of this was pretty darn easy. There were no surprises here, except for the one thing I didn't have was iron berries that come from ironwood trees from rustic. I have not encountered any of those, or I didn't. If I saw them, I didn't bother to cut them down because I didn't think I would need them. So I had to fly around and look for an ironberry or an ironwood tree, which was pretty simple. I just went to places with lots of trees and looked for trees that were different. So I know what a silverwood and a greatwood and a cherry tree and all the different trees look like. So I just looked for a tree that looked out of place, but was not one of those. And sure enough, I quickly found an ironwood tree. So we've got this. Let's go ahead and make ourselves some stew, if this will all fit in our inventory, which it will not. Oh, God, that's annoying. Hopefully it will let us. Hopefully it will let us plus this once we have everything in the table. Oh, hey, it's taken it. It doesn't need to be in order. Yay. Alright, so now we have our ultimate stew. So again, we want 12 of them. Throw the rest of the bank. So that's about that. In this pearl, that's not going to be a big deal. Using discs, I'll figure that out. Shouldn't be too hard. If nothing else, you can go to the... could have sworn there was some disc that you could make, either the atomic reconstructor or something allowed you to make discs out of something else. Anyway, I'll figure that out. If nothing else, we can, talk to the Elvis-looking dude in a village and get some that way. So that shouldn't be a big deal. About the only thing that's going to take a lot of time left on this is, other than, of course, getting the rest of the singularities, is going to be the Benitoite, mostly just because getting enough slates for the acceleration runes is sort of a pain in the ass. So now that I realize I only need 12 of them, how many do I have? Do I have any? I have 5, so I only need 7 more. Actually, I might need more than that. Okay, so I need those 4. Yeah, I'm going to need a bunch of them. I am probably going to have to go ahead and set up a ritual under this for some automated blood, just to save myself a little carpal tunnel syndrome. It probably won't save me much time because it'll take me as much time to set up the ritual and automate blood as it would and automate slates as it would to actually just bash them out myself. However, it will be more interesting to do it automated and less repetitive clicking. What else have we got going on? We've got, I finished all the stuff for the creative generator. This is the EU generator from IC2. This bad boy. So I've got all this stuff ready to go, and it doesn't consume anything that I need to keep, so that is nice. I did finally make a rainbow generator. So this should be ready to go. What do I want to say about this? Most of the stuff is fairly straightforward. I've already talked about how absolutely devastating to your auto crafting crafting a whole crap load of high voltage solar arrays is. It is just so much materials that you sort of have to think outside the box and give your automated crafting system a little help to make that much. Another thing I will say is that you run into problems in this mod pack with things being broken when you try to make some of this stuff. For instance, if we look at the MSU recipe, MFSU, if I were going to say trying to craft 4 of these are the kinds of things we need. But if you just set this up normally, these energy crystals will not populate, auto-populate in the AE system well. And by that, what I mean is if we come down here and try to make a crafting recipe. So let's say we want to make a crafting recipe for, what is it, MFE? Oh, it's this guy. It's still up here because I had to fix it. So the MFE, if I do this, so if I come here to the MFE, and populate, this won't work. And the reason it won't work is because these energy crystals are these free auto-populated phantom energy crystals will not work in the AE system. So what you have to do to make this auto-crafting of MFEs work is you have to get rid of these, and you have to come up here, energy crystals, and you need to grab one, and you need to click a real one that you have made into these spots. And now this recipe will work. And the same thing is true for if you're looking at something like cube. Let's say you want to do this bad boy. I think this is another broken recipe. This will not work. And the reason it won't work is because this isn't going to auto-populate, isn't going to work in JE. So what you have to do is you have to get rid of that, and you have to come up here to your cubes, and you have to make one, a real one, and click a real one into this spot. So that's an important safety tip if you end up running into any broken recipes in your auto crafting. And usually it's things like tanks or energy holding items that have a progress bar for, you know, how much fluid or how much energy they have in them, or how much damage they can take. If you run into any of those that hang up in your ME system auto crafting, when they do hang up, usually the reason you find out is that you get to a spot and you'll make, say, for instance, a bunch of energy crystals, but it will not make the next step. All you have to do is pull out that MFE, get rid of the ones that aren't working, the fake energy crystals that aren't working in the recipe, click in the real energy crystals, and then it should work for you. But let's see if we can actually get our creative generator in here. I don't know. Whoops. So I picked up a bunch of radioactive stuff. So yeah, pardon the noise. These Industrial Craft RTG pellets, I forgot that they are radioactive. And they can't really hurt us, but they can make a lot of noise. Alright, it looks like all of that will work. So let's see if we can do this. Yes. Is there anything else I wanted to say about any of this stuff? I think that was about it. We waited until we already had a creative tank, so using up UU matter was no big deal. A lot of this stuff was free to make, or I mean easy to make. It just took a shit ton of, pardon my French, a lot of resources to make the high voltage solar arrays. The induction coils ran into problems, I think mostly with the advanced energy cube not wanting to populate, so I had to fix those recipes. But on the whole, this was not too bad. So, boom. We have the creative generator. I still have radiation on me. I think that lasts a couple of minutes. But anyhow, so I don't think we get the advanced because I think there was something else that we were required before it. Yeah, it wants us to make the creative RF first. But there you go. That is that. So now we've got the creative EU and this done. We're getting close on the creative gases. Just need to make a few more things. If we take a look here, this is the one part that's a little freaky. Will take me a minute possibly, is filling up 9 ultimate gas tanks with the various slurries and whatnot. I don't think this will be too hard to make since we have the creative fluid tank to feed these. It just might take a little playing around to and setting up some equipment to do it. So I don't think that's going to be too horrible, but I could be wrong. I don't see anything in there that I think is going to be too scary. Actually, the reason I haven't done this one yet is just I haven't gotten around to making the 4 awakened cores, and I don't want to lose one of my creative fluid tanks until I'm pretty much done with making fluids. So I'm going to hold off on this combine until I'm pretty much done making all of the other stuff that I need to make through fluids. Or at least until I get to the point where I only need 1 creative fluid tank anymore. So that's about as far as I've gotten. Lots of in-game work here. But we got our meatballs, we got our stew, we got our creative generator. We've gotten a long way towards our creative catalysts and our ultimate singularities. Which will give us infinity ingots, and once we have 1 infinity ingot, we can throw that, we can melt it and throw it in the creative fluid tank, and then we should be good to go. That's about it. Just really been focusing on that stuff. Not too much else to say. I got to start processing this stuff through my quantum compressor to start turning this stuff into singularities. We need both redstone singularities and also flux crystal singularities, which is why I'm continuing to make some more diamond, is that we need to, or why I made some more diamond, so that I can, I need to set up a situation where I've got diamonds and a creative tank full of redstone feeding into a fluid infuser, I believe it is, to make a bunch of flux crystals, because we're going to need 100 and some odd thousand flux crystals to feed into a quantum compressor. So that's what I'll be doing over the next couple days, is making my coal singularities, my diamond singularities, my emerald, my redstone, my glowstone, my flux crystal. I got to figure out still how to make the lapis and the quartz, and the nether. There's the quartz, the Syrtis Quartz, and the black quartz. I've got to set up some way of making those. So yeah, we got to work on that still, but those things are still on the horizon. And then at some point, I'll have to figure out how I want to do the. I can't fly anymore since I took my draconic armor off. But at some point I'll need to also either bite the bullet and manually do a bunch of slates through the blood altar here, or go ahead and set up probably a witch farm under here with a ritual to suck blood out of the witches. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be working on off camera for the next couple days, is getting that stuff taken care of. And we're crawling slowly through the bragging rights and draconic chapters. So we are getting very near the end, but unfortunately there's a lot of grind to the end here. We've got this guy made and this guy made. We're very close to the creative gases. We're very close to the creative RF. Still need to play a lot with the infinity, with basically the singularities is the big problem to get the creative items. Once we have creative items, I hope that the rest of this comes out pretty darn quick. Having infinite items certainly has to help, right? And then we can go back and do the finish out the dimensional stuff. We've just been waiting on, mostly I could do parts of this, but I can't finish it off until I have infinity catalysts. It takes an infinity catalyst for the dimension builder, this guy. So that infinity catalyst is what is keeping me from closing out the RF Tools chapter. And the Environmental Tech chapter, Diamond, Manulin, Gold, and Mithril. I can do all those now, which means I can do this. I can do that as well. So basically I have everything I need to do this, but I'm probably going to wait until after I get the creative thing, so that I only have to basically make one of these, and then I can make the rest of them with the creative vending. So that'll finish that off. Alright, well that's about it. I guess the first thing I can do is I've never had a creative power supply or creative generator, so I can go play around with that, see what it does. But we already have pretty much all the power we need from our huge nuclear craft fusion reactor, so that's not too big of a deal. Put our suit back on so we can fly. So this bad boy is still, pumping out like a champ, 4.8 billion RF per tick. So I don't really have to worry about power. So basically, I guess I could hook that thing up. It's going to pump out EU, but I think we can pump EU into these mechanism induction things by no other way than just using... I don't know. I'll play around with it. Alright, I'm babbling at this point. I'm going a little bit stir crazy with all the singularity stuff, to be honest. It's a bit of a grind since there's really no challenges left in here other than grinding things out. We're invulnerable, and even the one case where we're not invulnerable, which is the Chaos Guardian, we have plenty of armor for that now. There are no fights left. I guess what troubles me with this pack, and I wish there was something about it, is that there should be, to really sort of incentivize me for going after this stuff. I really wish that there was some boss fight, some end boss fight, that required the infinity armor or required infinity weapons, that required some of this stuff to conquer. But as it is, it's like I'm going to make the infinity armor, and I'm going to put it on, and I'm going to do a little dance, take a screenshot, and then in the game. So there's no reason to have any of this stuff. I don't need it for any fight. I don't need it for any reason. So that sort of makes it hard to spend hours and days grinding out all these singularities and and all of these last bits of armored tools and draconic evolution stuff when I don't really need any of it. But I have promised myself that I will try to finish this thing out. So short of the game glitching out, I will go ahead and try to close all of this out. But I don't think we're too far away. Probably another week or so to get this all cleaned up. And in the meantime, I'm going to start looking at either Enigmatica. I have never really played a Skyblock, so I'm going to take a look at possibly starting an Enigmatica 2 Expert Skyblock, or it sounds like the Project Ozone 3 Kappa mode Expert Edition is out, so I might take a look at that. Anyway, I'm babbling. Thanks for watching, and I'll probably be back in another 3 or 4 days with another upgrade or update. Hopefully we will have all of the Singularities done, and I'll be able to present to you solutions for the Syrtis Quartz and the Fluix Crystal and the Quartz Singularities, because those are sort of the last hard ones to make here. I've got to figure out how I'm going to do that. I do have tons of the materials, so I might just have to feed it through manually. I've got 93,000 blocks of quartz, so we're getting there. I'm only really going to probably need max of 150,000. And I have, Syrtis Quartz to break up yet, so we might just have to brute force our way through there. I did turn on a tier 5 void miner, which is getting us more. Oh Christ, I didn't even realize we're up to 22,000 nether quartz ore and 36,000 black quartz ore with another 93,000 black quartz. How are we doing on Lapis? We got 50,000 blocks, so that's 5 singularities, and we got another 3,600 in ore at 12 each. That is going to be another few singularities. So Lapis might be the one that takes us a bit of time. Anyway, I'm babbling. That's enough for now. I gotta get back to my Singularity grinding. I will talk to you later. Bye.